Hello. Hello, everybody. As you can see in today's video, I am not in my typical place for making these kind of videos. You know, I haven't made a video like this in quite a while, and I know I say that, but you know, time of recording that I got things going on. I'm on an island. No, it isn't the one owned by Jeffrey Epstein, and it is not the private island either. It is a public island meant for camping. Basically, public camping. So, yeah. And I plan to stay here a few days. Hopefully, this video that I'm recording, I just wanted to have evidence of its existence, but basically, I'm having this recording to, you know, just say, hey, I went camping that one time, you know? But there are many things that I could talk about. And who knows, maybe I could do a multi-day recording where for like an hour or so, I'm just walking around talking to the camera. But I'm not sure. I'll probably just do the one and just go with that. But right now, as you see me, the camera is working. The phone that I'm using is working. And, yeah, I'm recording. I feel like I'm in your choose your own journey game. You know, I feel like I'm in a Legend of Zelda game where you're just like exploring shit, and then you find some space that the game never originally intended for you to explore or something. But it's a small island. It's a very small island. Like, you can literally walk around this island. But I'm telling you right now, this island is probably, I don't know, it's about probably the same size of the Vatican City. Well, I don't know about the same size. Probably smaller. You know, about 2 to 3 times smaller, I suppose. Or maybe bigger. I'm not sure. I'm going to try and do some measurements later and see if that's the case. But I have the feeling that it would be kind of funny if Vatican City is actually smaller than this island. Because if you walk around just enough or run around just enough, you can actually walk around the whole island. You know, that kind of thing. It is what it is. I am walking. You know, I never really got to get going on my fiction. Okay. If you guys don't know about the lore, I was starting to make a fictional story with this character. Let's call this character, I don't know, Emma. Okay? And, in this storyline, she just graduated college. It's her graduation day. You know? What she doesn't know is that her whole entire 24-hour cycle on the day that she graduated is in a time loop. But the time loop hasn't started yet, so she isn't aware of it yet. But then she repeats the same day again and just assumes that she was dreaming about, you know, the day she was going to have for graduation. And then she repeats again and again and again and again and again till eventually it dawns on her that she's in a Groundhog's Day event. And then that slowly turns into the opening thing of the season, which turns out to be a guy in a sketchy, stranger danger, that kind of thing, suit of some kind. And this guy, well, girl, who knows, it could be anything, could be anyone, was responsible for it, but never caught in time to catch this individual. But eventually, she breaks free. But it's at the cost of getting unwanted problems. She doesn't gain superpowers. I don't think she would gain superpowers, not automatically. But I think what it would be is, because she does that, all her problems start with like secret government forces that are from foreign continents or from different planets, that are more diverse and more, balkanized than we are as a planet. They're more divided than we are, where they have like 1,000 countries, 1,000 nations, that kind of thing. And this girl starts off with this idea that she needs to do this or that and ignore it all, or just, think she can escape with the college route. But what happens instead is that, and I'm walking forth because I wanted to just simply talk about it. What happens instead is she goes down a path completely different than what she was trying to do. And it unveils a lot of things about certain people who she thought was a villain, but in reality were the good guys or something. Hey, look, it's an abandoned fire, okay? Because the native people, like, nobody's truly native on this continent of North America. You know that? But I mean, like the locals, like the people who were born and raised here, who are from here. Who have been here for generations or whatever, or at least just been here throughout their life. These people, during the weekends, like to come here, and they usually leave right around Sunday, either to go to church or to, go to work on Monday, or just because they got stuff they gotta do, because, despite them living in a very rural area, a lot of these kind of people live an urban lifestyle, but I want to start this character like really cocky and narcissistic and can't handle like a real sense of humor, just a real bitch, right? Like just at the beginning, because she hasn't developed the character development to be like, like a proper respected character. And she has to slowly, and I do mean slowly, have to earn that respect. And she slowly, and I do mean slowly, over the course of, say, seasons or episodes or books or stories, becomes like a good person. But right now, she has to slowly make it. And even when she does make it, each time she does it, she has to earn it. She can't ever just be the perfect person. She can't just be like, oh, you had it inside of you all along. No, it's not going to be and then kind of story. I want it to be a And because she gets into this loop, she ends up out of the loop somehow, or at least just does it in a way where she kind of figures it out, but when she does, I would title the beginning of this part of the story, The Old Ending. Alright, this would be the chapter, the beginning, or the first book, The Old Ending. Actually, who needs books when I could just make up the story on the go? And, there's another guy who does these things, does this incredible stuff. She just kind of knows things sometimes, but she has yet to understand them or earn them. It's like a baby that just learned how to talk and walk for the first time ever. Or just started getting the ability to do that. Or started learning to get that ability. That's basically what it is. But then, when she does develop that ability to walk and talk, that won't be the ending. That will be that could be a beginning. But eventually, there will be an Armageddon day that I would like to call, there's a bird's, the new beginning. And that's when she's all character developed, when she's all deep and rooted. But there are a lot of problems with that kind of story, because it kind of gives you an idea of how it's going to end. But here's the thing. I have an idea. I don't like horror, so I'm not going to add that element to it, because maybe horror-ish for certain characters or certain whatever, but you gotta go more original. You gotta go more sci-fi. You gotta go more religion-ish. Mythology, as they sometimes say. But your religion is a minority, or really old, or just really different from the majority religion cultures, if they start calling it mythology all the time. Christianity, Islam, Judaism sometimes gets called mythology. But, if you're of a pagan religion, or if you're of a animistic religion, you probably get that all the time. All the time. Oh, your belief is a mythology. There are people who actually believe in that kind of stuff. And also history, actual history too, not just, what people said, this and that. The Roman Empire, or the Greek Empire, or, whatever the fuck the Persians were. And then, obviously there was the Americas. People try to say, oh, they were peaceful. They were pleasant. I do admit that there were people that did have great civilizations or whatever, but it was not peaceful, okay? These people were not peaceful. If you were not of the tribe that they agreed with, or if you were this way or that way, they came from cultures where, especially in the more dominant, bigger empires of those eras, which they were really advanced for their time, but pre-Columbus times, at least from what the history says, these peoples, because they weren't exactly a peoples, groups of people, because even within them, you had all those groups that were constantly fighting each other and this and that. But I'm not saying they were all barbarians or something. I'm just saying when it came to the empires and stuff, they just had that tendency, because they treated land like it was an ocean, and some worshipped one god, some worshipped many, some didn't worship gods really at all, they worshipped spirits, some were not really worshipping necessarily, but were out there just, Like, basically they had a political, spiritual, and religious excuse to basically just go out and murder other tribes and stuff like that. So when the Europeans came, they weren't fixing the problem of them committing slavery or incest or murder or cannibalism. All the Europeans did is they just brought the European equivalent to that. Eventually it led to a bunch of wars, and it settled out where the Europeans, for the most part, won, sort of, but they just won enough where it was like, oh, now we don't really care for you anymore as much. But then, in 1775, or actually throughout the 1770s, you know what happened? It really pissed off what would eventually become the 13 colonies. And the thing is Britain, out of all groups, what is now the United Kingdom, the British Empire, they had all this history and stuff like that. And that's what I want to add to the story. But they were like, oh yeah, we'll just leave them there. They don't really need to do that. They were the ones being liberal on this. The British. The fucking British. The people who conquered like a third of the world, at the height of their reign, Like, damn. Like, you think the Spanish and the Portuguese were harsh? Ooh, brother. The French and the English were conquering shit like crazy. Okay? That's what they were doing. They were just those kind of motherfuckers. And when the U.S., or what is now USA, started to get formed, it started to cause conflict. And that conflict turned into a British Civil War. And then that British Civil War got so bad that the USA, or what is now the USA, declared independence and made it official by July 4th, 1776. And because of it, it eventually went on to become known as the American Revolution. And because of this American Revolution, it caused a bunch of problems. And, spoiler alert, it costed them with a civil war of their own. What we now call the American Civil War, because guess what? USA won, or what you want to call USA. Not Dixieland. But despite USA winning politically and USA winning war-wise, culturally, the South just kind of has the Dixieland in them. It's not really, like war anymore. Now it's just more of a cultural, semi-political thing, where it's just kind of ingrained in their identity now, because it's been around just long enough to say that. Like, that's just how it was. And for like 100 years, because of this, the South did not vote Republican at all. And this is the kind of lore that I would kind of add to my story. And you might go, why would you add politics into it? That's not what I necessarily mean. I mean like the lore of like, oh, a conflict creates another conflict, which in that conflict makes everything more complicated, and then everything starts losing to history, but because of it, all of a sudden all these new groups start forming, and then it creates more and more conflict to the point where it's a completely different situation every time, or it becomes a completely different situation once it gets brought up, or once that situation starts, it becomes completely different than how it started, and how it ends will be completely different than whatever becomes of it, Like, it's a never-ending story. Like, history is a never-ending story, and that's the kind of lore and history and like story I want to make my fictions a part of, where you don't just, remember it in highest detail, or want to go out of your way to remember it, or enjoy it, or think it's iconic, but in a way where you just want to be a part of it too, to the point where you're beyond fiction and want to actually do stuff in real life. and then maybe make your own fiction out of it. Or hell, perhaps, make your own version of it. Where it's like, what if this character did this? But right now, this character, I don't know. Let's make him white. If you want to be specific, Caucasian. Okay? What the fuck was that? Alright? Yeah, let's say this Emma person. Whatever. I want to say that this person, this girl, if you will, and you might go, why don't you just do a boy? Because I am a boy. So I know what it's like to be a boy. But I'm trying to make a story where it's like, what if, you had a woman? And no, I'm not trying to do the whole DI thing or whatever. I'm just imagine, what would you do if you were in a fictional universe and you were the opposite gender and it was this way and that way. What would I do if I was a woman in this universe? But yeah, this person finds out I don't know, they go into some things, some files they found out their parents are not really their parents, but are actually agents for some alien company or something. I don't know. And this alien company, Earth is one of those planets where they're not looking to want anymore. They're looking to kind of to destroy it because they ain't got no reason to use it no more. And so her goal is to, prevent that, but also put it in a way where they'll just discard it regardless, I don't know, and maybe make that alien guy who put her in the time loop or girl or whoever you want to put it as an event that just kind of kicks part of the story. And when it does come up back again, it turns into whatever the hell. But I don't know. I'm just somebody who's into real life stuff, if that makes sense. Even digitally, I'm into real life stuff. But I still want to make my own fictional story out of it. And I think that's kind of why I'm on this island, to gain some inspiration from doing this. But, yeah, and then eventually, she goes into the forest and meets these weird-looking, green alien guys, and they're against the New World Order, and Michael Shanks was there. I'm just kidding about that one, about the whole Michael Shanks one, but it would be kind of funny, wouldn't it? If you don't know who Michael Shanks is, he was the actor who plays Daniel Jackson on Stargate SG-1, the TV show. The original one from the late 90s to late 2000s. At least that's when it aired anyway. 1997 to 2007 for 10 seasons. Okay? If you're wondering how it became 10 seasons and not just 11, is because, the last episodes ended up in 2007, at least from what I'm told. So, yeah. Okay, and I'm walking. I am walking. And okay, let's keep going. And they're like, I don't know. You are a piece of shit. This is your fault. Okay? All of this is your fault. and then they go pew, pew, pew. And you don't even know what the problem is. It's just her fault now, you know? She doesn't know how to react to it. She's just like, oh, you narcissistic bastard. And then they go pew, pew, pew on her. You know? She gets injured. She escapes, but she gets injured. And all of her troubles were already beginning. That's just the obvious part, you know? Imagine being the guy doing all that paperwork. Ugh. That'd be a lot of paperwork. I tell you right now. Hey, which way do you think I should go? This way or that way? I'm going to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch your tiger by its toe. If it hours, let it go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, we're going to take this one. Alright? We're going to take this path. I hope we took the right one. The correct one. Okay? Because if we didn't, I'm going to be very pissed. And you know who I am when I am pissed. Or you probably don't, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. She asks some stuff like something like, how do you know who my parents are? Why do you know so much? Why do you think I committed some problem of some kind? And they're like, you don't understand. You need to be destroyed. And they don't even explain why, you know, she has the problem. She knows it's some kind of problem. But they're not going to tell it to her because they just kind of expect you to know, you know? Because, don't know, can't say. You know, it was a hidden lore thing that has yet to be discovered. And if it does get discovered, I'm telling you right now, it's probably going to be one of those things where I'm going to make it in such a way where you know that's probably not the truth. Yeah, I'm not going down there. But I mean, look at it. Look at it. You know? It's 30. Whoa. But anyway. Yeah. The hell is that? Whatever. Yeah, and then there's some battles, some fights, you know, maybe even some romance scenes, that kind of thing. I want to combine, like, a male fantasy with a female fantasy, so that way with the romance scenes and stuff, it's like that of a female fantasy, and when it comes to the sci-fi, high-core stuff, it's like the male's fantasy. So it's like, basically, not necessarily the ultimate thing, the ultimate, boys and girls story, but just more of like, imagine, I don't know, a Gilmore Girls or a Heartland version of romance combined with the Arrow or Stargate or Lego Ninjago worth of fighting lore, you know, and a couple other things, but in its own unique way, so that way it doesn't turn into horror or something. Because people assume that when a sci-fi story or a really cool original story is actually new and original, it instantly has to be either comedy or horror. You know, it can't just ever be like an actual, like, lore. It can't just be, you know, the next, you know, greatest franchise. You know, it can't just be another Arrow or another Star Wars or another Stargate. No. If you're going to make a big deal about it, you got to make it like the Backrooms. Man, The Backrooms would have been so much cooler if it wasn't a horror story. Not gonna lie. Same thing with SCP, you know? SCP Foundation. And let's get back onto the story. Yeah, they do that. She gets, all this stuff. And, or whatever. And she's like a savior of Earth, or soon to be a savior of Earth. But she's not there yet. So they make her do all these weird shit things. And eventually, she does get a team. But she has to earn that team too. She has to earn those members' trust. And in this story, I'm not going to make like more than 13 main characters at a time. Okay? Like that's got to be the maximum. Like the main character, as in the character, the main character, the story is, that specific story is about, or a specific show or book series is about, and then like 12 other characters that just kind of either stay around or mostly are around in lore, kind of like me and the gang, but this guy went to Ascension, this girl's over here fighting the Akal, and not a cult, Akal, that is a separatist group against, I don't know, Mexico, okay? Or actually probably some Spanish word for like, just like alien catchers or something, alien control. I don't know. That actually sounds kind of funny, I imagine having a TV show literally just called Alien Control. That probably exists somewhere. I don't know about in English-speaking regions, but it probably does. Ooh. That kind of looks deep. I don't know if I should go down here while I'm recording like this. I think this might be a problem, you guys. If I can get down, then maybe I'll just walk back up. I don't know, man. Ooh. Oh. Ooh, this is strange. This is different. This is different for me. Whoa. I'm just gonna have to go back up. Well, they're not kidding. The people who came here and told me about this place were not kidding about how steep that is. They were not joking. Clearly. Ugh. Well, anyway, it's a pretty big island. Just big enough to fuck around and find out. But yeah, again, I don't like horror because it's scary, and it's just one of those things where, it just really, it could ruin a perfectly good story to tell, to make, to show, That's why I'll never do horror. Maybe I'll do a comedy, but a horror? No, never. It always ruins a perfectly original story, Because, how how dare you do live action? How dare that live action not be horror? Not be slasher horror? Like, okay, Freddy Krueger, calm the fuck down. Okay? Okay, Jimmy? Okay, Jimmy? Come on, Jimmy. You gotta go talk to the goyim. Gotta go talk to the goy. You know what? You're a goy. You're a part of the goyim. Oh yeah, they're people. Sure, bro. Sure. Like, no, they're not. No, the fuck they're not. You know they're not. You're a stupid goy. Well, not stupid. You're one of the smarter goys because you know that they're not humans. You know they're not people. Okay? You're a part of the goyim. You're just intelligent enough to understand that you were in fact a goy. Okay? You know what I am? Not a goy. That's what. Yeah. Because I not surrendered, but I mean, like, I appreciate the gods of Yahweh. Because I'm plural with this shit. Okay? I'm not going singular with them gods. I'm going plural, okay? Because I don't like worshiping one. I like worshiping many. Even though I'm basically the religious equivalent of an atheist. Even though I'm not actually really an atheist, okay? I like to call myself a Wiccan, but it's like, I don't really commit to their holidays. You know? No disrespect. I just mean, like, I don't know much about the holidays. Because that's something they just don't really talk about. Like, they'll talk about how they're very free will believing. They'll talk about how they're very pro-life. They'll talk about, you know, the masculine and the feminine. Or the Liam and Olivia, if you live in the U.S. Gods. But they don't mention Pandora. You know, those kind of things. They don't really talk about the Lacletus, you know. Yes, I know. It's, you don't have to, there's no official scripture to recommend a Wicca. It does exist, though. It does exist. You know? And obviously I don't worship only two gods. Those are the gods of the masculine and the feminine. They're not the only gods ever. You know? That kind of thing. But what they are the two major gods, or the two most widely accepted gods. But you don't have to worship or anything like that. Because free will and understanding free will is a choice. And you can reincarnate, but you can also end up in the shadow realm, which is kind of like hell, but it's temporary, you know, until all your bads, you know, get taken out, and all your goods get sent, you know, through you. But they find a way to balance it, so that way you become neutral. And then they send you out there. And then you reincarnate. You know, that's one way of interpreting it. It's mostly agreed that you will be in a form of purgatory if you do reach enlightenment after death. You know? And then they'll judge you if you're meant to accept enlightenment or go to the shadow realm and then have to go into rebirth, where you're going to be another human. Plants be plants, animals be animals. But here's the thing about reincarnation. You don't really, you're just another version of you. You're like what you could have been. Or maybe when you reincarnate, you're somebody else. You know? You could say, oh, don't believe in reincarnation because this and this and this and this. But it's like, brother or sister or whoever you are, whatever you are, I could say right now, you don't exist, okay? I could say right now that you believing in the soul the way that you do, where it's just like, oh, you're originally you. The problem with that is, okay, then where does the soul go? You know? You could say, oh, hell and heaven or whatever. But it's like, not everybody's a Christian. And I'm not trying to shit on the Christians. I'm just saying, you know? But they have this mentality of, if it's not a part of my religion, religiously speaking, if it's not a part of my religion, it must be foreign and awful. You know, they don't always think that, but it's just like, you know how Christians are, historically speaking, where they see something, oh, different. You know, it gets strange, but again, don't get me wrong. It's just something that they tend to have in their religion. And like Islam is like way more strict on this. Way more strict on this than Christianity. You know? It goes way harder on the, if you don't follow these rules, you will be punished stuff. You know, like they don't just leave it for the afterlife mostly. No. They don't do that. What they do is they punish you and they stone you for, you know, reading the Quran, like actually reading it correctly, because it's in classical Arabic, you know, or whatever. Or you're a woman and you didn't wear a hijab today. Like, if you want to wear a hijab, fine. But if you're forced to, if you're in a society that by law or any way that forces you to, that's bad. You know, you should have the choice to do that. You should have the choice to believe in those kind of things. But being forced to, okay, then you don't really deserve your beliefs, if you ask me. Like, if you ask me, I think people should be more towards free will. And even if you are in a society like that, you're living in a country like that right now, or, you know, were or are or will be, you have the free will to, you know, not do that. Because if you ask me, I'd rather die free, knowing I choose my free will and choose my freedom of speech and freedom of religion more than, you know, I would choose that more than living a life where, you know, I'm told to do this, do that, and basically make your prison, make the worst kind of prison cell that you can't ever really escape, and call it freedom. And why should you believe in free will? You might look at this and talk to me and be like, why should you do this? And you might go, well, what does this have to do with your story? What does this have to do with that? You know, that Emma girl you were talking about earlier. Pretty much nothing, but I just wanted to talk about it because it's just something that I'm thinking about at the moment. But, you know, I don't know. Actually, I think I'm gonna walk back here, walk back to where I was, at least for a little longer. But yeah, people, at least in my religion, Wicca, which is something I recently converted back to, I'm gonna be honest with you. People, they'll worship the goddess, they'll worship the feminine, okay? But they always tend to forget the masculine. They always tend to forget that the male side matters too, you know? Like, you don't need to deny the male side and then you wonder why, it's declining. Because here's the thing, when it comes to religion, politics, and sports, things like that, the reason why a lot of them are either male-dominated or at least they become popular because of men is because men are the kind of people that push harder on those kind of things, are the kind of people that are more interested into those kind of things, and when women are interested in that kind of stuff, it may be popular, but men don't really like stretch it out, like women will stretch it one way, but men will really stretch it out. But women don't really stretch it out as much, or if they do, it becomes like a Gilmore Girls story, it becomes like a, oh, did you know that when you speak French, there are French people in France, like bullshit, like they tell you the most common bull that's so retarded sounding, But I'm not saying all women are like this, and I'm not saying that women can't ever be religious or can't ever have philosophy or a political worldview or, in sports. But what I am saying, and what I am implying, is that you gotta let more men in there, You can't just have women. And yes, you can be allowed to be called a wizard, okay? It's just saying male witch, alright? That's all that it really means. And there are a lot of wicked men who get offended when they're called wizard, but I say own it. If you ask me, I say, be fine with the fact that you're called a wizard, because that means they get to acknowledge your existence. They get to say, hey, let's go talk to the wizard, And I'm kind of a Harry Potter fan, so it's like, I'm not gonna go too hard on that. I'm not gonna blame you for it, But again, I'm not trying to shame those who are, say, Christian, for example. I'm just saying, like, I'm very, like, pro-freedom of speech. I'm anti-abortion. And the reason why is because there's the biggest statement in Wicca, and this is the only rule that is strict. Okay? This is the one that is not an exception. Unless it's the special circumstances, it's not, like, generally speaking, as a rule, it's not an exception. There's not an exception to it. Basically, do as you will, but harm none. And the thing is when you gotta know if a woman is capable of getting an abortion. First of all, you gotta know if she's pregnant. And second of all, you gotta know if, even if she is pregnant, if she's even capable of having an abortion while she's pregnant, and if she should have one. Because even if you are pro-abortion, I still wouldn't want you getting an abortion where, it kills you in the process, or, like, it complicates things, or, it does certain damage, that kind of thing. And, I don't think you want that either. But I'm anti-abortion, generally speaking. With the occasional, in the case of, say, rape or incest or, those kind of things. But if it's just like, oh, we had sex last night and I accidentally got pregnant, can you give me like 13 abortions? No. No, Olivia Smith, you cannot just insta get an abortion. Like, no. Like, you actually need to be capable of getting one in the first place. And by capable, I mean, like, medically, scientifically saying, biologically saying, yeah, she can have an abortion right now. And I would say in the first 3 months. But once you start getting to 4 and 5, that's where it starts getting like, I don't know, bro. You're kind of killing babies, you know? I mean, you're already killing babies when you do an abortion, but like it's already life. But when you get to the level of like straight up aborting them, like in the 6, 7, 8, 9 month range, ooh, that's where it starts to get controversial. That's where it starts to get hot. And that's where most people try to get their abortion in, you know? That kind of thing. And I understand there are some people who shouldn't have had kids, but there are a lot of people in this world that should have kids, that should have, you know, children and a spouse that are young right now, that are in, say, I don't know, for a random example, in their 20s. Okay? That kind of thing. Especially people who are wannabe fathers. You know? That kind of thing. And it's crazy. It is crazy. But obviously that's not the only thing that Wiccans believe in. You know, what else? There doesn't have to necessarily be a meaning to everything. You know, like even on r/gibberish on Reddit, if you believe it or not, you can actually get banned for posting something that's actually gibberish, you know? That's actually nonsense. I'm not kidding. I've literally known people who have been on r/gibberish for like several months and instant ban. And I'm like, why are you mentioning Reddit? You know, it doesn't really make any sense to talk about Reddit in this conversation. Well, it kind of does, because in real life, you don't have that problem. You know? You don't have that problem of getting insta-banned, you know, by your own community because, you did the exact thing that the community wanted you to do and it worked. You know? Not just that, but, you know, this or that. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. Like, why would you ban somebody for making gibberish on r/gibberish? You know? And that's basically what a lot of people are talking about when it comes to abortion. You know? Like, when you're anti-abortion, people are assuming, oh, no, you hate women's rights. You hate women. No, I don't. No, the fuck I don't. I don't hate women. I'm anti-abortion because I respect women, okay? That kind of thing. As a straight white male, I respect women. And I know I didn't use the best of words and I didn't phrase it the best way to talk about these things that I did in this video. But I'm telling you right now, at least I said something, you know? And if you ask me, from what I know, religion is one of the only things in life where you can make it your whole entire personality and it's socially acceptable, you know? Not in all societies, but generally speaking in most societies, you know? Especially if it's the majority religion. You have a lot of these folks where the majority spirituality is the majority religion. You'll have a lot of these folks that are like, oh, thank you for converting to the religion, or whatever. But, there are just people who they live and breathe their spirituality. They live and breathe their religion. All they are is their religion, you know? And I don't really want to become one of those people necessarily. Don't get me wrong. I do believe religion and spirituality are important. But not so important that you kind of lose the ability to understand what is the point of your faith, you know? But I guess it would depend on the religion and the spirituality to say that. And as I like to sometimes say, not every philosophy is a religion, but every religion is its own philosophy. And I also like to say, not every spirituality is a religion, but every religion is a spirituality. And, I do identify as Wiccan. You know, I'm kind of a lone wolf. I only convert people that actually are interested in the religion and aren't just like curious or, you know, do this, but are like actually wanting to be a part of it, you know, and aren't just like, oh, the feminine, you know. And I say to those people, you gotta stop neglecting the masculine. You gotta stop doing that kind of stuff. And I know I'm repeating myself over and over and over again. But that's the conclusion that it came to. Now I'm going to sit down because I need a little bit of a breather before I go back, you know, back to my campsite. Man, the world had things. And, what are you going to do? Conquer all the multiverses. You know? That's what I say. I say, conquer all the multiverses. Yeah. Why? Because I said so. Okay? Because you can. And I want humans to start conquering other planets and stuff. You know? So we have more than just Earth. Because Earth is cool and all, but it's like, we can only stay on Earth for so long, you know? Eventually, we're going to have to start conquering other planets. And you think it's complicated now with all the countries and nations on it and the quote-unquote Palestine, you know, and Israel and South Sudan and Iraq and Saudi Arabia and China, Russia, USA, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, all the existing nations and all the former existing nations and soon-to-be existing nations like Bougainville, you know? Because Bougainville, they're coming into official existence. Like, they're already a country, but they're going to make it themselves as an official nation by September 1st, 2027. And the UN is officially recognizing it, so it's a big deal, you know? Big deal for a big day. And that's the kind of thing that we have. And maybe we'll form new languages, new religions, new spiritualities. Because I think science and religion should work together. You know? I think both of those two things combined, and also all the other knowledge. Because atheists and non-believers of any religion, and also, you know, people of other religions, people who are really religious and spiritual, should not look at each other as really lesser. But we should find a way to, at least for the ones that can get along, not just get along, but also learn from each other, where, you know what? It's not just religion or science. If you ask me, I think the study of science is the having a better understanding of the gods. Or if you're a Christian, for example, because, you know, that's the dominant religion of my era, specifically Protestant Christianity in my country of the United States of America, time of recording of its existence, I would say to you, to those people, studying science, understanding this kind of stuff is basically just the more physical future, but there is that spiritual part, so that's probably why you're a Christian, you know, like you use the Christianity for the spiritual part, for those part, but for the mental and the physical and the emotional, you look to science, because the science is the study of God's creation. It's where you get to understand it more accurately. And to be kind of funny, and I know this is kind of ironic coming from somebody like me, but the person who came up with the Big Bang Theory, like the actual theory about how the universe started with the Big Bang, stuff like that, it wasn't invented by an atheist. It was invented, well, not invented, but he came up with the theory. This person, the guy who did it, he was a Roman Catholic priest. That's right, a hardcore Christian. Ooh, and I know, some people don't consider Catholics to be Christian, but it's like, okay, give me a definition of Christian. And guess what? If you're a Orthodox or Protestant, you a Christian, but so then that would mean so are Catholics, you know? Like, if you're in the big three, and you believe in the Trinity to this degree, yeah, you're what they call a Christian. Not every Christian is a Catholic, but all Catholics are Christian, you know? Kind of like Caucasians with white people, like white people with Caucasians. Not everybody is Caucasian, but all Caucasians are white people, you know? That's why you got a lot of white people, especially in Europe, that will be like, I am not Caucasian, I am white, I am, I don't know, Croatian, you know? That kind of thing. Shout out to Croatia. Oh, and also Vatican City because of the whole Catholic thing. But you get the idea. You get the idea. And there's Africa, there's Oceania, there's Asia, there's North and South America. You know, obviously there's Europe. But you know what's one continent that everybody forgets? Antarctica. Antarctica. I'm coming for you, penguins. I swear to the gods, bro. I am coming for you, buddy. Yeah. Da-da-na. Da-da-na-na-na-na. And I am walking in the forest, talking shit about stuff that has nothing to do with anything and everything to do with everything. I don't know. But, I'm walking. But I think Bougainville might be my new favorite country. My new favorite nation. Maybe I'll geolocate my YouTube channel to Bougainville temporarily. At least for, like, the memes, you know? And I know. I've seen the memes about me. Have you seen the memes about me? Have you seen the memes about you? I'm not kidding. There are probably memes about you out there and you don't even fucking know it. You know? For all I know, you could be Michael Shanks, you know? You could be Jeff Goldblum. You could be... What's his name? Casey Simpson? Yeah, you know that one guy from that one Nickelodeon show you definitely didn't forget? Yeah. Or, another one. What's that one Australian girl's name? Or is she Australian? Extra Emily, I think she's called. I don't know. She's an interesting individual. She's probably religious or not. I don't know. But I guess it doesn't really matter anyway. You know, you got a lot of people on Earth, period. 8 billion time of recording. soon to be 9, and then 10, and then 20. How many people will it get before it starts getting down in the billions? I don't know, but China is already going that way. But India, they used to head towards that route. But I want to say ever since 2014, nope. You know? And speaking of 2014, that was the last time that the mainstream media had something going for them. The legacy news, as they're called now. And 2016 was really the year that killed not just monoculture, but, you know, news as a whole. But they're still around because it took a while for it to catch on. I want to say 2020 was really the year when it really started to catch on for the first time. And even then, the news is still around because they can get away with it for some degree. And eventually they will catch up, but, you know, not everybody needs to pay attention to a YouTube channel that has like 100,000 videos in the length of 3 years, you know, on one YouTube channel. Like, have you seen the average news YouTube channel? Like, they post thousands of videos a year. Every year, you know? That kind of thing. Hundreds of thousands of videos. Millions of videos. Like, I bet you, like, at least, like, 25 to 30% of all, you know, information, you know, news, stuff like that on YouTube comes from, like, news channels just posting stuff just to post stuff. Like, they'll talk about anything if you let them. They will, okay? Like, if you ask me, the only thing you should turn on the news for is sports, if you're into that, and weather, if you're into that, okay? I mean, weather does kind of matter for obvious reasons, but, like, sports, it's like, yeah, you know? That kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts, ideas, prayers, accomplishments, beefs? But I don't know how long I'll be a Wiccan, you know, because I am not exactly the best at keeping my religion, you know? But who knows? Maybe I will stay with it. Regardless, I am walking. I love walking. I kind of like nature. But you kind of hate it too. It does so many bad things, but it does so many good things. You know? As much as it does good, as much as it does evil. You know, that kind of thing. It does evil as much as it does good. Because it is nature. It doesn't give a shit. It is a neutral character that don't give a shit. Okay? It's pretty much its own god. Not Mother Nature. Okay? That's more sexism than it is reality. Maybe it's more of many gods. I don't know. I'll figure it out maybe one day. But I'm hoping I get to reach true enlightenment one time. See what that's like. Because it's not like I haven't done that before. You know? But I have came back into physical form because I got nothing better else to do except live my actual life this time. Instead of just skipping it all ahead. You can't learn every language instantly. You can't learn every skill instantly. Every instrument. Every tool, every weapon, everything. But whatever the true meaning of life is, maybe one day we'll know. But until that day, you're just going to have to keep figuring it out. Figuring it out. Excuse me. Anyway. Yeah. I'm just walking. In nature. But yeah, I'm camping, doing stuff, going back to the camping place. But, yeah, what do you think? Again, any thoughts, ideas, questions you want to make? Ugh. You know? I'm not on another planet. I am not on another planet. Okay? I'm on an island, which you can obviously tell. But I'm not on an island on another planet. Okay? I'm telling you that right now. Okay, I'm just kidding. I actually am on another planet, but owned by United States. I don't know. It's some bullshit. It's just some bullshit. You know? But, gotta walk up. Damn. Did I go in a different direction? Well, that's strange. Did I just go in circles? No, I don't think I did. But I am following a line. And I'm gonna keep going. But, yeah, I'm gonna do some more exploring. You know, offline. Off the record, off recording. But, if there's anything you want to know, if I do actually die, if I do truly die, just know that humanity is not the only species that is curious. It is not the only group of peoples that are out there in the universe. They are not the only ones that have religion or spirituality or science or language or math. We are simply one of many orphans in the universe. Now, we are ahead of some others, but we are far behind some others in the orphan stage. Now, who knows what the old adult or dead species looks like for something like us. But I can tell you, there is more than one multiverse. Is an infinite amount of multiverses where it's all specifically this version, where it's all specifically that version, you know? And it keeps going and going and going and going. It's infinities of infinities of infinities. It's the largest infinity of infinities, okay? It's infinite. It's infinite of infinites. There's no beginning of end to time, okay? There's a beginning and end to our lifespan because that's how physical time works in our existence. But we cannot comprehend infinity amount of times. We don't have that ability yet. Maybe one day we will be able to go infinity and beyond. But, I tell you right now, I ain't no Luke Skywalker. I ain't no Harry fucking Potter. But you know what I am? I'm a Mr. Bro 101. And I'm on a fucking island. Okay? I'm on a goddamn island. And I'm just talking and shit. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go, off to do some lore and stuff. So, I shall see you later, or not. But, again, if I do die, just know, this has yet to become the beginning. Maybe one day humanity will start to be able, or could be able to have the ability to scratch the surface. But, as they all say, it takes as long as it takes. So regardless of how long it takes, it will happen. It is inevitable. But how long will it take depends on how we use our free will. Anyway. Yeah, I'm out of here. Fuck. Guys, they're after me. The Martian government is after me. Okay? You know those little green men? Yeah, I kind of went to one of their many home worlds Don't worry, guys. They're not. They're just checking the premises. But luckily I didn't get caught. Because if I did, I'd be in big trouble. Big, big trouble. But luckily, I didn't. But if I tried, they would probably dissect my body and try to see if I was alive or not. You know? Well, anyway. Oh, and also time travel into the past is also possible. Time travel into the future is kind of well known, but time travel into the past... yeah, that's hard. And it probably already exists, given the fact that this video exists. Because if this video does get uploaded to YouTube, I'm telling you, any time traveler right now, after this video gets uploaded, you can come talk to me at this island. Okay? And I'm not going to give any locations or anything like that. Assuming you know my lore, assuming you know who I am, assuming you know where I am. Come and visit this island at this time, in this era, at this specific date, after this video is uploaded. Well, sometime after. Anyway. Yeah. I'm getting down here. It's a lot harder to go down than go up on these kind of adventures. Mini adventures, if you will. It's getting darker. You know, it's not morning time, it's nighttime. Or soon to be nighttime, it's summertime. Is what I'm trying to say. It's summertime in this part of the universe. You know, known universe. I don't know much about the unknown universe. Because it's, well, unknown. There's a lot of possibilities out there. But I don't know what it's gonna be. There just is stuff to learn. Well, anyway, I'm walking, talking, existing, and it's not the worst thing I've ever done, but it's not the best, you know? So, I am on my way, going back to my campsite, and I don't know what to do about this. Do you know what to do about this? Because I certainly don't. Anyway, I'm out of here, you guys. I gotta go. But yeah, you're not alone. I know where you live. Just kidding. But be aware, okay? Stranger danger is not the only thing you have to worry about. Okay? The universe, the multiverses, will show you things that I cannot show you. Whatever they may be. But, until then, again, you have to figure that out on your own. But, for now, I shall see you guys later. Or probably not. Because, you know, lore reasons. But yeah. Good morning, good day, good evening, and good night. Bye.